I wonder how these two practice for one another. Like, which Zergs practice with whom, and whether it's like, okay, you Lambo, you are lazy, you're gonna practice with me, and then you guys can have like the other ones. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's always I like this discussion whenever it comes up, because then usually, someone or, Roddy's always going to point out, be like, Soul practices with Reynor all the time. And I'm like, okay, well, there's only so many people that you can practice with that are going to be good enough to be valuable practicing with. And I'm like, these two players must have, it's like, you're going to make agreements where it's like, okay, I will practice against you if you sign this contract saying you won't practice with Reynor. Like that's the rule. You get to practice with me. I'm not going to tell anybody about, what you're doing. So you get to be better. You get to help me practice against builds, but no sharing. You can't go running this around everywhere. And I mean, I think the community in general is a little too close knit for something like that to actually happen, but
right.
It is one of those funny things to think about though, isn't it?
For sure, because there's one story from Brood War days where there was a period of time that Flash and Jadong were like the best two players in the world, and the only thing that stopped Jadong from being a Bonjour was the fact that he had a rivalry with Flash at the time, given that they were both the best. And before a tournament finals, where they both had to play against each other, they both actually decided to practice against one another for it, because nobody else was good enough at the time. And so leading up to the tournament, they did nothing but practice with each other. And then come the tournament, they had to play against one another because nobody else was actually good enough to, play like their opponent would, which that's always stuck in my head as like one of the most beautiful things about StarCraft.
Yeah, there really is so much depth to it. Even we get to watch these two individually microing their first two lings just going across the map to scout. And when I think about Reynor, Serral, ZVZ, like it makes me think of when we first saw Serral going up to take the world, or take world championship, right? And he was getting into some gnarly ZVZs with the best Korean players in the world. And we were seeing this matchup go to a place that it hadn't really been to before, where, you'd have a conversation about, oh, well, yeah, people play Master Roaches and lots of Ravagers and maybe sometimes Hydras, but like, wouldn't Lurkers counter this? And then everyone's like, well, it's not really easy to get there. Most players can't do it. And if someone can, that player is usually so good that they just win. And that was Serral, until he got to the point where he was playing against guys like Rogue and Dark, and we got to see this crazy late game ZVZ stuff. But when Reynor came in and started to really heat up as well, he became another one of the players that could push this matchup to that point. So while I do not think that all the games are going to go there, because I still expect a lot of good aggressive play out of both of these guys trying to find those weaknesses in those holes, it's very possible that we can get to see some of that very rare, like true Zerg endgame that most players are not really capable of forcing a game into.
Certainly. And they've both gone for kind of different approaches here. So Reynor actually went for a lot of lings and a later Baneling Nest, wanted to apply the pressure while droning up behind this. But Serral's read it pretty decently. Ooh, just let in a few lings here, which is a little bit gnarly. Allows Reynor to get a full scout off. Ooh, Serral's actually going for a Roach Warren. He does get to spot these Banelings of Reynor, but Queen out of position. Reynor already dipping and diving and making Serral's life very difficult in this game.
Yeah, that's the pressure, right? You want to keep it up. And when we talk about the ways, the styles that people play in ZVZ, sometimes you'll have the players that want to try to make things slow. They'll take their third very late, open with roaches. They try to skip the Ling Bane phase, but both of these players are able to open with it, put on a bit of the pressure with those lings, try to defend, grab those third bases at the same time, and then everything else kind of matches up, right? The lair timings are very close, the range upgrades very close. I think the only thing, don't see whether or not that Roach Warren's already been put together for Serral, but it's not the biggest deal unless he wants to get Roach speed as soon as the lair is ready. And yeah, it is there. As I'm just going off of our program feed here. Thank you so much. Our observer is awesome, bailing me out. And that's what happens though, right? These guys are going to mirror each other in a lot of ways because they both are pretty much as close to perfect as you can get for a StarCraft player.
Yeah, I've been looking at these production tabs and it's been nothing but drones from both of them. Serral, though, as soon as he hits lair, starts up that Spire along with Roach speed. So normally, I'd say Serral isn't the muter guy. He's normally the guy that hates to play against the muters. But here, he had his mind made up long ago because he's got all his gases up rearing to go, and Reynor's the one that's not actually going for a Spire at all, but he is still producing Lings despite having that Roach Warren.
Yeah, and this is one of those things that we always like kind of scratch our heads on sometimes, because the Lings can obviously do a lot of work as they're trying to shut down this base here for Reynor. But at the same time, when that +1 finishes, we know the Roach is 2-shot Zerglings, so they become infinitely more effective at clearing them out. And you're like, oh, if I get a big surround with the Lings against Roaches. No, Roaches are tanky. Roaches do pretty solid damage to that. Sometimes we'll see these guys actually, if they reach that end game ZVZ, they'll bring out more Lings later on as the map gets kind of spread, you know, and you've got more different areas you can attack. But I would expect it to be a little bit more of the Roach focus, however, just because it is so hard to beat an upgraded Roach player with with Lings that don't have, you know, either early Carapace or melee upgrades to kill those Roaches faster.
Okay, so Reynor does actually get the scout off of the Spire. That's actually a big deal. It means he won't be getting caught with his pants down anytime soon. He's going for a drop Overlord here, and he already does have speed Overlords. And he's getting the Spores, he's getting the Hydralisk Den, the Infestation Pit, so getting everything down that you need to battle against Mutas. But the Mutas, I don't think it's going to be, like, a lot of them. I think it's just going to be enough to, A, clean out the map a little bit, put on a little bit of pressure, and make him safe, because this is already up to, like, 4 base versus 4 base, which... that's kind of late for Mutas in general.
Yeah, and I'm wondering now if it's like one of those I'm kind of testing the water scenarios, clear out some Overlords. We don't usually see Zerg players really double down on the Spire tech. If it comes to it really, really late game and you want to maybe try to break a Lurker siege, Broodlords can be an option, but that's not usually going to be the focus. Overlord drop coming in from Reynor. Even with the speed upgrade, those boys are pretty slow. So the Queens, the drones react in time. Now goes for the natural. If these drones don't move, they will take 30 health damage and nothing else.
I mean, that was a bit of a blunder, like losing the Overlord before any of them got to drop. I mean, I know one drop, but that's not enough to kill the drones. Serral's actually reaching 200 supply. Lurker Tech is seconds away from being completed. But we do see that big blob of blue moving out across the map, and Reynor's been supply blocked for quite some time now. I'm pretty scared for Reynor in this position.
Yeah, that's a lot of forces, especially with the Ravagers, and you need to be so careful, because when you're attacking this base from the south side, it's you're limited in surface area. Like, there's actually not as much room to maneuver defensively if you don't jump onto the ramp yourself, because that hatchery kind of turns into a force field. The Queen gets killed. And the other really important thing here, Ben, is the larva spawns on the south side of the hatchery. So attacking from this angle, you can drop the biles onto the larva and the morphing eggs very easily. You're denying production from the opponent. Now, the Lurkers coming out are definitely going to be amazing versus the Roaches. Diving on that's going to be quite hard to do, as those Mutas were poking away at that third as well. But you kill the hatch. You deny a lot of the building units. You've got to be feeling good about yourself. If there's one thing that you can kind of dance with the Lurkers at this stage of the game, it is those Ravagers. Until they have the Adaptive Talons upgrade and they can unsiege and re-siege very quickly, the Lurkers are going to be a bit vulnerable to those Corrosive Vials raining down.
Yeah, they will be. And Reynor right now actually has the upgrade lead as well. He's at 2-1. But, you know, getting a base knockdown is pretty brutal. Serral's doing a really good job of applying pressure and just throwing in like one Roach or two to soak up the Lurker shots so the rest of his army can deal damage. But you can tell he really wants to get more done out of this.
Yeah, and he's really trying to maximize the efficiency of all of his forces. And Muta's parked over that extractor in the main base, bouncing shots onto the drones, denying the gas income as much as they can, possibly getting a Queen, maybe a Hydralisk here as more biles continue to rain down by the third base. And this is what we're talking about when we say these players are so good. Reynor not only is able to continue to reposition his own units to defend this and not take too much damage, but he's also still at the same time not eating those biles on the east side. This is the difference between Reynor and any other Zerg player. Serral probably would have killed most anybody else by now already.
Absolutely, Nate, and that's what I really wanted to get at right. It's Serral went at this with a 50 supply lead. In fact, hold the phone. Serral's actually dealing quite a bit of drone damage now at the third base of Reynor. The Lurkers do get into position. Serral notices it and moves those Roaches away before they do all perish. Behind all this, Serral's taking the fifth base. He's also getting his own Lurker Tech up and running, and we all know how good he is with his Vipers, and that's exactly what we see back at home for him, getting their energy up and running. This is turning into a real game now.
Yes, it is. And especially with that range upgrade for the Lurkers finishing, this is where the biggest power spike is going to come out from Reynor's army. Those lurkers with the hive tech upgrades are incredibly powerful. They are so strong. So I'm very interested to see if he's going to be able to wedge himself somewhere he can get damage in before Serral catches up in tech. Because, you know, we talk about the lurkers, or excuse me, we talk about the ravagers with the vials, but when the lurkers have 10 range, it gets a bit trickier. However, Serral's got the viper, so he's just abducting those lurkers into his army, pulling them out of the ground. That's one way to solve a problem.
It certainly is. He's skipped lurker tech almost entirely, even though he has it available. He's not got them on the field. He's just using the vipers to counter the lurkers of Reynor. Doesn't have vision though here. There's a bit of a slight mistake by Serral, but he needs to get over to his fourth base to try and save it, but Reynor does take it out.
Yeah, and now, okay, he comes back over towards that base to try to at least clear this force out, as it looks like Reynor wants to try to force this position. He does still have a few of the lurkers in the back. As long as he can fight with the entire army and prevent it from being easy to just pull those lurkers in, it's going to have a bit of a better chance, but a good pre-spread here from Serral is still nice. Actually, one of the lurkers is shooting behind the army because of a rallied Hydralisk that ran in, took out a good amount of the damage that was there. These Vipers need to start eating up some of the buildings for Serral if he wants to get the energy to pull the lurkers out of the ground. They're still dealing a pretty tremendous amount of damage.
I can't believe Reynor's doing this. He's actually breaking through. Serral has nothing left by the looks of it, and this really caught him off guard entirely. There's still a few roaches here dancing around. Serral reveals his burrow, but it's only going to buy time, and will Serral be able to clean this up? I mean, even if he does, he actually is ahead in workers here, but those Vipers in the sky, they can't really do anything. They can't attack, so the supplies are very deceptive here.
Yeah, it's a very uncomfortable position to be in because he had all these bases. He still has that one on the west side pulling the money in, but even with the defender's advantage, getting into a position where he can stabilize just isn't possible. And Reynor takes game number 1. And ladies and gentlemen, if we haven't oversold this series enough to you yet, let that game be a nice example of why we are so excited to watch these two guys play, because it's not just aliens vomiting all over each other. It is Reynor and Serral's alien critters vomiting all over each other, and it is a hell of a match to watch. A very exciting back and forth game 1. I'm not gonna lie, Ben, I thought Serral had this in the bag after he took out all the larvae, blew up that base, was getting the drones killed on the east side. I'm like, all he has to do is hold on here. He has Vipers, but then he couldn't get the energy together for them. He couldn't get to that position where he could just stabilize, and Reynor never let up on the pressure with that counter. He saw the one chance he had to pull the game back, and he dove on it.
It certainly did. You saw the game started off, and they both went different directions immediately, but then ultimately head into the same thing. They just went very different ways about getting there, and they're both trying to use these small windows where they can abuse each other. So Serral, he had a much larger army, tried to kill Reynor, took down a base, did quite a bit of drone damage, but the main thing for Reynor was he just didn't die. And his one advantage was the fact that he had lurkers out. Like, he had the tech advantage in that game. And the fact that he managed to pounce like he did, it also kind of split Serral's attention a little bit. And lurkers were left kind of burrowed for longer than they should be, but also just the positioning of Reynor. Like, did you see how many biles he dodged? Not one of those biles could hit one of those lurkers. Against any other Zerg, you'd have probably been, like, Serral would have held pretty comfortably. But these guys, they do a beautiful dance when it really comes down to it. Yeah.
And that's why I can... You know, I'll meme about ZVZ as much as anybody else, but when it comes to Serral versus Reynor, it is a different matchup. It does not play the same. You're not going to see the same things happen that happen everywhere else, unless, you know, you get a really uncharacteristic mistake. But if Reynor or Serral were making those mistakes regularly, they wouldn't be who they are, and we wouldn't love them as much as we do. We are loaded into game number 2 in the bottom right here of Romanticide. We have the red Zerg player. He is Reynor.
And spawning over in the top left-hand side, playing for Team Ents, it is Serral. Serral is one of those players that he can look incredibly tilted after a match, but I've never actually seen him, I've never seen his play deteriorate because of tilt, so to speak. Like, the emotions that he shows after the game, it's almost like he gets it all out of the way, gets it out of his body, gets it out of his mind, and just starts off the next game with an absolute clean slate.
I definitely would describe both of these players as tilt-proof. They're very, very, very strong mental game. I think when Serral was on his rise originally, that was always one of the biggest things that impressed me because, especially with a very hardcore and elitist attitude you'll get in a lot of StarCraft discussions about what it takes to be good or what makes a player good. Serral was always a guy that when we would see him at the events, whenever I get a chance to talk to him, and I loved talking to him because he always had such a fresh take on things, and he was always a player that was talking about taking time for personal stuff, not practicing too much, giving himself, the space outside of the practice and the tournaments to still be a person and kind of not putting all that pressure on himself that he has to always be doing this grind. And, he just has to deliver when it counts. And, you could really see the value of that in his practice. And I think, Reynor kind of strikes me as a guy that doesn't take anything too hard on the chin either, right? You don't take, doesn't take the losses personally, doesn't hold it against anybody, just kind of evaluates, says, hey, this is where I screwed up. This is where I'm going to work on it. I'm going to practice. I'm going to get what I need done. But, at the same time, how could you look at Reynor and assume that this is a guy who doesn't take time for himself? He obviously knows how to party.
Absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, what you said about Serral, it's nice that he treats StarCraft absolutely like a person treats their job. And he gives himself that relaxation time as well. Goes to bed at a very reasonable hour, unlike a lot of other StarCraft 2 players that I know. But yeah, also one thing that just popped up in my mind, the fact that it is now Serral, Reynor, Clem, and Hero Marine in the top 4, that's kind of the same top 4 we had a couple of seasons ago, right?
Yeah. Which specifically were you talking again? I actually have Liquipedia up. I can check it.
It was summer, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about these two players, I'm always just going to assume that they've been top 4 in pretty much everything, right?
Yeah, I mean, these
pull
two,
that up.
The one change last season was, I think it was Marine Lord instead of Hero Marine, but it really does. And I hear Smix being like, yep. So she's got it down for me.
Smix has got us. I feel like I'm like the Flash or something. I've got the person in my ear giving me the feedback, like, okay, we got you. Live updates.
But that just shows you that like this little sect of players that we now have in the top 4, they've been consistent right from the start of the year kind of thing. And like Serral and Reynor especially, Clem's come on in absolute leaps and bounds. I would absolutely put these 3 on their own little tier. But it's beautiful to see that Hero Marine, despite his kind of recent down, you could say, he's well back into the swing of things, and he's made top 4 and yet again. StarCraft 2, as much as people like to blame luck on things, that is not lucky that the same 4 players have made the top 4, both in summer and here in winter.
Yeah. These players kind of break the game for everybody else, It actually does feel like those old days when we would go to like a big international tournament or like, and we'd say, all right, which foreigner is going to make it into the top 8, And that was kind of it. And we have a bit of a better story to tell these days as these lings try to poke the third base. But now it's a bit more like, all right, which foreigners will reach all the way to the top to lose to Reynor and Serral? Who gets the highest before they run into one of those two, and then it's a toss up for the finals between these guys pretty much always.
Interesting build choice by Reynor. Like, he hasn't got a lair on the way, right? And he's going for +1 carapace. I would not be surprised if this is going to be like a massive Roachling Ravager all-in from him. The fact he's got a lot of money saved up as well. The carapace serves a dual purpose in meaning that your lings don't get 2-shot by the roaches, but also it boosts every unit that you have. Also, your lings don't get like 1-shot by Banes and stuff like that.
Yes, and that's the big one right now. Interestingly enough, I like the pointing out of that. So he opened up the mineral wall just a smidge, not any large pathway like he's going to be moving his army through it, but I think he wants to have the ability to shut that spot down in the case of, I don't know if he's just 300 IQing this. Did he see the Nidus network that's under production? He's assuming that the worm is going to go on the other side of that perhaps or whatnot. I'm not really certain. But he's opened up the field a bit for himself. That Baneling hits the lings, and the Muslim, even though these lings are very hurt, they're still able to win this fight with the numbers advantage because of exactly what you just pointed out at Carapace. So nice to have.
It certainly is, but Reynor, while he was planning on doing something a bit cheeky there with a lot of roaches and ravagers and lings, Serral's also doing something cheeky. Now, how did these really clash against one another? Serral's actually leading on the drone count. Does he need to commit to this? No, he doesn't really. And he kind of realizes that. He's like, you know what? We're slowing down the game. Let's go Spire. Let's utilize my tech advantage, because given that my opponent has +1 armor, he was like, this was two kind of all-in-y builds, or at least two pressure builds that were going to collide. And I'm not sure. I think it's actually going to work out better for Serral.
Yeah, let's. I thought something similar along those lines in game number 1 at some point, and then it's just so hard because you have, it's like these are the two characters in the show that just have all the BS powers that they can just pull out at any point when you're like, oh, this is where they finally lose or they die, and they're like, no, I have plot armor, right? And like Serral and Reynor are the guys with the plot armor, and perhaps this is a good position for Serral. I want to believe that because I still want to see him take this series all the way, regardless of whether or not he wins or loses. But also, I don't think I've actually seen a ZVZ on Romanticide yet. We haven't actually had to cast many, if any, ZVZs in this whole tournament. At least I haven't.
If this game is anything to go by, the normal openings aren't ones that Zergs tend to go for in this matchup, or at least on this map, because like a Nidus going up against like a big Roach Ling Ravager thing. And the funny thing is, both of them kind of just didn't happen. And now we're going for a normal game. Serral does scout the Spire of Reynor, which is actually a big deal. So he could, hammer down on Mutas. In fact, and he's doing just that. So Reynor, I don't think he knows about the mutas. Serral does. Serral's taken a 4th base a little bit faster than Reynor, but Reynor actually opted for the 4th base on the rich gas base. This game's going to get wild.
Yeah, big surround, gets the Lings into that 3rd mineral line, kill the Queen, but drone control keeps Serral from losing, I guess a valuable number of workers. He's only down 1 drone with Reynor sitting at 69, so they both have a pretty good economy going. Nice, you could say. There's the Carapace upgrade, by the way, starting for the Mutalisk. So perhaps this is the telling that Serral may be wanting to commit a little bit more to the air game than he was letting on earlier, but the Lings are going to go running into the main base. And it's actually, I'm going to assume it's important for him to see that Spire is wiggling and jiggling, because that's going to say, oh, he is getting Mutalisk upgrades.
It certainly is. And even though there's Lings in the main base of Serral, which he doesn't want them to be there at all, he does have a higher Mutalisk count. Nice micro by Reynor, though. Just kind of hitting and running, using the time in between Serral's Mutas attacks to actually get little chip damage done. So even though Serral did have kind of the spring on the Mutalisk and still does, Reynor's doing well with the disadvantages that he had. He's also mining more gas, I do believe, or at least similar gas with less drones available. I'm starting to really like Reynor's position all over again. Although if this game does go on and we have +1 Carapace Mutas against Reynor's not being done, that could be very nice for Serral.
Yeah, that's one of those unit interactions where if the Mutas have the upgrade advantage, as they're kind of like free farming over this this gold gas base, shutting that down is very nice. But it's one of those things where it's like when we talk about whether like the Phoenix upgrades in PvP or Marines in TVT, if you're fighting with Mutas that even have just like that 1 upgrade lead over the other, you don't just win, you usually win big. You're going to end up killing almost everything that they have, hardly losing anywhere near as much. These Roaches trade out over here, and Serral, as that supply goes down, he's turning it into more Mutalisk. So this is going to get funky, and I'm all for it. We're going to have a nice little mass Muta ZVZ here, Benjamin.
We are, and neither one of them are backing down either. Now, would they do this against other players? I'm not sure, but this is almost turning into a battle of wills as to who's going to give up first or who's going to tech out of it. And so far, it doesn't look like either of them are doing it. The Muta counts, what are we at? We're at 28 for Serral versus 24 of Reynor. And Reynor is down an upgrade as well. So does he really want to be taking this fight? The Sky fight should be going to Serral with these kind of numbers available. Ground fight as well, leaving the Roaches behind. I'm not sure Reynor really wants to be taking this one.
Yeah, it's very awkward to watch this. That Carapace upgrade that we were talking about getting to help a lot. Now, of course, the problem is he still has to deal with the Roaches that were on the ground, but there's not too many of those left. I'd love to see the unit tab. How many Mutas does each player have was he able to actually really thin the herd out from Reynor during that fight?
We are now at 27 mutas for Serral against 14 of Reynor.
Okay, yeah,
Andy
that'll do
takes
it.
out this base. Andy's mining way more gas. So the income tab, we've got 1,300 gas per minute or so for Serral. Just 1K for Reynor. So this muta lead, and they're both still going for it. There's no switch in sight. Serral just making magic happen.
Yeah, and this is the snowball effect that we were just talking about. That's the importance of having that upgrade. It is such an impactful thing when you're playing with units that attack and have that balance damage. Being able to just mitigate it from the other side with the early Carapace is so nice. But then also he moves forward a little bit faster into the air attack, which we don't even have started for Reynor. And then mutas are starting to farm out at the natural expansion too. But you can't engage this. You have less mutas. They're not as strong. Well, I guess they're even now for a little bit before that +1 finishes. But now if you take one more bad fight, you're going to lose the game. You will not be able to escape with your mutas if you start to lose in a tilting fight there. And yeah, Serral takes it. Reynor taps out. We've got a tied series, ladies and gentlemen.
We certainly do. And that was a total role reversal, right? It was just Serral killing Reynor here, there, and everywhere with the Ling run-bys, the muta run-bys. It was just great play from the Finn. And guys, we're going to a short break. We'll find out who wins this series right after.
And we are back. Hope you guys have at least used that break to put some popcorn in the microwave or something, because This series is only just getting started. We have a 1-1 score between Serral and Reynor, two of the best StarCraft players on planet Earth. And the series has delivered so far to Muslim. It has been a hell of a match to watch already in just 2 games.
Yeah, and they haven't been super standard, right? Like we've seen, I mean, the fact that they both continued making mutas like they did, it wasn't just about getting a little bit of control or anything like that. That was weird, but it was super duper cool that they both kind of didn't want to slow down and they both chose to really challenge each other. Anyhow, third map of the series will be Jagannatha, and spawning over in the bottom left-hand side, playing for Team Clash, it is Reynor.
And his opponent, spawning in the northeast position here of Jagannatha, he is Serral.
The hood is up for Serral. Now he means business.
Oh, he's going full Palpatine. Is that what's going down here? We're gonna have some unlimited power.
Basically. Ooh, 2 very different builds out of these guys. So. I mean, the main difference in this map compared to a lot of others is it's huge. Like it's really long. It'll take
enormous.
It'll take your overlord so long to get to the other side. Lings will arrive later as well. It's kind of obvious which third base you kind of could take, I suppose. You work along the absolute north and south of the map as you expand. But Reynor, he's actually gone for gas pool here. So he's going to be getting very fast speedlings out onto the field, which that's all well and it's all well and good for map control kind of thing, and also it could be a bit of a surprise because your opponent's going to scout it later, and you're kind of utilizing speed on such a large map, I suppose. But it is weird that of all maps, this is the map you kind of like. Do you want to put pressure on this? Is it because there's no ramp leading up into the natural, so you don't have to worry about a Baneling being at the top of a ramp that you can't see into? Who knows at this point?
Yeah, there's a whole lot that you can do, right? This is one of those maps where you kind of have, I mean, at least in my opinion, I would say this is like a fair use of something that's kind of an out there mechanic, right? The speed zones too, which don't come into play. I don't know if I expect it to come into play as much in ZVZ, just because there's a general lack of ranged units, but like outside that 4th/3rd position that often gets contested, there's some wild stuff that can happen there if we end up having Mutalisk fights in the speed zones or repositioning Ravagers and Lurkers outside. This map has the potential to make things interesting. And I also really, really love, probably my favorite thing about Jagannatha is just that base to like the east of, say, Reynor's natural, that third base. You have that high ground third with a pretty limited amount of entry space with that ramp. It's not as open as on a lot of other maps. So if you want to play a little bit more on the defensive side, it does cater to that in a way, especially considering the very large size of the map. And well, there's that layer starting up for Reynor fairly early, would we say, Ben?
Super early. So not only like a gas pool kind of thing where it kind of delayed. Ooh, this Ling getting in though. Will it be able to see this layer immediately? If he ran straight at a queen, I think he'd have been able to see it, but he actually didn't. In fact, he just got to see it. So that's a big deal. And there are a lot of Lings on Serral's side of the map, and he chooses to cancel his third base. I'd say that this has already been fairly successful by Reynor.
Yeah, and Serral cancels that wall too, and I'm like wondering if he's going to try to dive in there, but does not take that bait, as there were a couple of Banelings ready to rock and roll in that position. So he's getting his own, Reynor's getting his own Baneling nest, but I'm very curious to see what happens as this layer finishes, because it's not like he has a third base either. He's going to take another gas. Does he take the second gas in the natural and go Muta?
I think this is going to be Muta. Like it. Yes, and it certainly will be. And denies the third base again, despite Banelings being on the field and stuff too. Like, this is definitely... Oh, so Serral immediately gets to scout that Spire as soon as it was getting done. This is one thing that both these players are very good at, is just getting Lings in, scouting absolutely everything they can. But I gotta say, this is a very good start for Reynor. The fact that he's cancelled that third base as much as he has, and he's got the tech going, like this unorthodox opening, this is kind of how he gets in Serral's head, I feel, whenever they play.
Yeah, but the mind games come in so much with how much they play each other. That's a really good detonation too. Took out what, like half the Lings in that clump. So any opportunity to put pressure on is going to be that much more difficult now. And I think the only thing these Lings can do is maybe try to stall to protect that Overlord. Not much else. Although, between us, I mean, we know the Mutas will be out soon. The Overlord is not long for this world, regardless.
No, and the worst thing about all this is, like, Serral's actually going +1/+1 melee and armor here. So he wants to deal quite a bit of damage and maybe utilize the fact that Mutas can't be everywhere at once. But Reynor, he's so far ahead in drones here, and he's still droning. He's up to 47 against 35. Serral needs to catch up really, really hardcore when it comes to his economy. But the thing is, his army's also going to be a little bit worse here, given that he can't shoot up.
Yeah, that's a problem. That is a problem. Like, this is, when you're doing it with Zerglings, it doesn't work as well as the old, what's the standard? It's like, oh yeah, you go for 1 million roaches and you just can't kill them in time. The roaches win the game, right? They kind of run over everything. You can't really do the same thing with Zerglings because the Muta player can still build a couple of Banes. And even with the Carapace upgrade, that's still one of those things that makes me nervous. So the lair just now starts for Serral a whole 3 minutes later than Reynor got his. And this, I mean, the map control here for Reynor should just end up being fantastic. The Queens can obviously bully them, but there's a lot of different angles of penetration to take to a Zerg base if he wants to fly around back towards the main, hunt the map for Overlords. There's a lot of utility the Mutalisks offer to Reynor.
Yeah, Serral's not dead by any means, but he's behind. Like, economically, he's behind. Tech-wise, he's behind. He also has to throw down spores and get queens for the anti-air defense back at home. The one advantage he does have is he has 1/1 Lings, whereas there's no upgrades coming along for Reynor besides +1 air weapons, which just goes to show you how weird this game's going to get. And Reynor, he's still droning up like a madman. So this map is definitely being played like this map should be. They're both utilizing it in very, very different ways. But I got to say, I'm much preferring Reynor's position.
Yeah, this is definitely a nice spot to be in.
+2 melee.
Okay. Serral's really doubling down on using the Lings, I guess, to buy his way back into this game. But, you know, I'm wondering now why hasn't Reynor taken a... Okay, he just starts it now. But I'm like, why hasn't he taken his fourth a bit faster with this map control that he's had? I don't feel like there's been that many Zerglings bothering him, but I guess you have to worry about overextending yourself as fast as the Mutas are. Because Gigantha is such a huge map, getting them back across still takes a little bit of time.
And Serral cancelled the +2 melee and now goes +2 armor instead. So a little bit indecisive. I think...
Are the Queens?
The Queens, the everything, I feel like. And when I ask myself, or when Serral's probably asking himself, like, what can he actually get done here? I think he just has to make this go into a defensive game. Like, getting up his fourth is going to be a little bit difficult. Queens against the Muta. I mean, this is a huge flock of Muta. The things that he has to worry about is like just huge swell of Lingbane Muta and just everything gets obliterated, right? But he is getting his own Nidus down. In fact, okay, so Serral's getting a Nidus, but he's 30 supply behind here. And he's also teching up to Hive. This is super weird.
Yeah, that's thank you for saying that, because now I just get to say yes. This is certainly unusual. You see this many Queens and nothing else has come out from your opponent. What else could they possibly be doing, right? Like, it has to be something like a Nidus. What Zerg is going to sit there on 3 bases massing Queens to do nothing? A lot of Banes headed for the drone line.
I think this spells disaster for Serral. 17 drones falling, 20 drones falling. Granted, that was a lot of Banelings, but Reynor has money to spend because he's on 80 drones.
Found. Money in the bag, baby. Put it all in, because this one, I do not see too many more ways for Serral to get himself a new lease on life. Yes, his Lings are much better, but at this point, Reynor has a whole lot other than just Lings, and he will never get his Queens across the map.
No, and there's a herd of them at this point. Like, how many is this? Like 16-ish? But Reynor's doing such a good job of shutting this down, and GG. And you can see the frustration on Serral. Maybe mad at himself here, but he's looking behind him. And Reynor, quite the contrast on his little cheeky face.
Tough game. Very, very tough game there for Serral. And he got such an early read on what was going on. And this just some interesting decisions. I feel like Serral psyched himself out like he was expecting it to be a fake. And Reynor was thinking, oh, he probably thinks I'm not going to commit to this because he scouted it. So I'm just going to mass mute it now. And there you have it. You're super dead. Just, wow.
Super dead. Super dead. I like it. You could definitely see that Serral, like, he remade the wall, right? It's natural because he's like, oh, am I getting Ling flooded here? And then it was like canceled them. And then he started remaking one of them again. It was like, oh, okay, I'm alive. But Reynor just, this weird, unorthodox playstyle of him, he completely threw Serral off. He took big chances on a really big map, got his Spire out completely without trouble, but giving Serral trouble. Like, Serral couldn't get up his third, which was really weird. Yeah, Serral just, that game, Reynor got into his head, man. And he played like the baboon we all know he can play like. And Serral's, he's one of those guys that's like, okay, if this guy plays smart, I can read it. I can know what he's going to do. But if he just kind of, I feel Reynor kind of clears his mind and just does whatever, and then Serral can't read him anymore.
Yeah, this to me is it's like Heistatron, just trying to go too many steps convolution to the point where it's like, okay, now you've spent the entire game just trying to figure out what's happening while your opponent was just like, yeah, I'm doing this and I'm just gonna kill you. And you probably spent way too much brain power trying to figure out if I was making a weird move or not, when I was always just gonna do this one thing no matter what. And that's not a bad strategy to have sometimes when you're playing someone who's smart, because the thing about those types of folks is they get inside their own heads at times. And now with a 2-1 lead, we're loaded in to Submarine with our red Zerg player in the bottom right, leading the series just one map away from that sweet victory. And moving on up, he is Reynor.
And spawning over in the top left-hand side as our blue Zerg, it is Entz's Serral. Neither one of them 12 pooling, but both of them are going for a pool, kind of like a 16 pool, so not a 16 hatch or anything like that. Being a little bit respectful of the fact that it is a short map, and 12 pools do arrive that little bit quicker. But neither one of them wants the opposition to kind of get an early lead. And Serral, despite being so frustrated at the end of that last game, he's still kind of smiling and talking to himself, it seems, in the webcam. And that's a good sign that he's not super tilted or anything.
Yeah, and I think that is still one of the bigger strengths of these guys is they've both been on literally the biggest stages in the world. They've World Championship Finals doesn't really get more intense than that. So when it comes to pressure, I think that these, you're looking at two bulletproof players in that way. But I start to add that extra layer where you see, I don't know what's going on. Serral's like talking to himself or something. I've just got my eyes on the camera since you were mentioning that. But you get the next level of it because it's not just any game anymore. If these two guys even played in like a weekly EPT Cup, I still feel like there's some heat that gets up because this has started to turn into like just the most intense SC2 rivalry that we've had. Like, I don't know, since like Nanny Walk called Polt a bitch on the main stage, right? Like since way back then, right? We actually have two players that are so good, but Reynor's been getting the better of him those last couple of series, as we were talking about their recent match stats. And Serral, there might be some pressure that he's starting to feel just specifically against Reynor, where he's like I gotta prove myself a little bit here. This guy is actually really freaking hard to beat. I gotta reach that next level.
Absolutely. I mean, Serral's the one that paved the way, right? He's the one that people call the GOAT. And Reynor, he has just rocketed up so damn quickly. And with Serral kind of paving the way, I feel he taught Zergs a lot of tricks and stuff. And the thing is, Reynor, I'm never going to call him a dumb player because he's not at all. He's actually very smart at the way that he approaches his series with Serral in general by not allowing Serral to have true reads on him. But mechanically speaking, Reynor is absolutely beautiful. And that's honestly one thing that allows him to get away with a lot of the stuff that he does. No other player can really do what Reynor does.
Yeah, and yeah, this has been a great series to watch so far, Ben. This one is always fun, and barring some sort of honestly miracle, we do anticipate to probably have a rematch of these guys in the finals, which is crazy to be able to say at this stage, but honestly, that's pretty much what's been happening. So it is what it is. These guys are just on that level, but Reynor's been feeling pretty good, trying to bring the poke over here to that third base is Serral. Now, he doesn't have anything, I don't think, covering his own third at the moment, so Reynor's going to get a bit of a poke on that hatch. There's just a queen tucked between two mineral patches. Oh. That is, that's a risky insurance policy to Muslim. That queen looks like it's going to die.
But the queen, like, Reynor kind of tilted it out a little bit, let it out, and then it got picked off, and I think Reynor's actually getting the better end of these little trades. Like, Serral's lost a little bit more, and Reynor decided to drone up a little bit earlier than Serral did as well. That being said, both of them are droning up like madmen right now. Even though there's lots of Lings and Banes on the field, they kind of know that, the other guy, he's got a lot here, and every single Baneling makes things so much more tricky to deal with. Oh my goodness. Whew. Reactions of a fox right there.
Yeah, these guys are both very quick-witted, quick on their feet. There was the one Baneling shot that kind of took a lot of the aggressive potential out of Serral in the last game, trying to avoid situations like that happening. You want to keep that third base alive. Does still have a couple of Banes here with these Lings, but that's the thing, is you don't really expect Reynor to be running into that. Not sure what just blew up over there in that main base. A cheeky Ling just running into Scout, perhaps.
I don't like saying this kind of stuff because when it's about Serral, it feels wrong, but Reynor is actually outplaying Serral in a lot of these little Ling Baneling skirmishes. Like, we've had a few Banelings of Serral just kind of blow up on one single Ling, which, you know, shouldn't be happening. And right now, the economic situation, Reynor is a lot of drones ahead, actually, getting up to like 9 or so ahead. The production tab does show that Serral is getting a lair and what have you. He's also got a +1 range weapons on the way earlier than Reynor, but Reynor's been handling this early game very, very well.
Yeah, that's the thing. He hasn't made any mistakes, and it's crazy, but you know, it's not even like Serral's like throwing everything away. It's just, we're talking about almost 1% tier differences that Reynor just keeps chipping away at, and that turns into a small supply lead here, a handful of drones potentially there. And while that economy does look very nice still on both sides, that's a big Baneling detonation. That's what we're talking about, is some of these shots that get taken are very, very scary. Now these Lings need to run back to try and stop anything from happening over at the third. There are 2 Banes positioned there for Serral, but Reynor, he's not going to give up the hunt just yet, as his roaches are starting to come out. But Serral does already have that +1 range done. The roach speed is just now beginning for him. And oh goodness, he's starting the spine crawlers. This could be a devastating attack. He's trying to get the queen on the third, pushed back at the last second as Reynor's making some Ravagers.
It has to be said, while all that madness was going off, Serral did actually get some Banelings in and killed 5 drones at the third, so that definitely helped Serral get a little bit of a lead in the drone count, so he's ahead by 5. But Reynor, he's at his front door. That roach speed, that +2 ranged weapons that's on the way, Serral won't have it available. This is multiple Banelings of Serral, though, marching in here, causing the split by Reynor, actually taking out a Ravager as well. Snipes one of the Ravagers. Serral is actually equal in supply while defending. If he can hold, he'll be in a good spot.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of potential here. You just have to be able to stop this. The spine crawler in the third base gets killed. There is still one on top of that ramp of the natural. The roaches are not really in range of it. Serral's he's kind of got to bait some of those units over that way. Some of the reinforcing Lings that'll be able to help chip away at, but at some point, I'm kind of surprised that he hasn't tried to squeeze a roach or 2 to even just focus down a few of the drones of Serral, since he does still have that minor lead as the reinforcements keep coming out. But his roach speed's about to finish, and that +2 attack to Muslim. If he holds here without taking big economic hits, his roaches are going to be a whole lot better than Reynor's.
It certainly will be. They've got speed in now. The one big disadvantage for Serral is that he lost all his queens there. He used all of them to defend. But Reynor, he realized, like, oh dear, like, this isn't going to kill him. Serral's actually got a little bit of a supply lead here. The drone count's very, very similar, but roach speed versus no roach speed, and Serral's very close finishing +2 range weapons on his roaches. Serral's in good position now.
Yeah, good snipe there with the roaches, of course. And this is one of those things where we talk about
Third base of Serral. Third base of Serral.
Speed.
Oh, he does find out about those banelings morphing. That is real clutch. In fact, did he just shoot one of his own drones there?
I guess it happens. I don't know. Even gods bleed.
Even gods kill their own units, team. It does happen. Okay, after all said and done, 54 workers for Serral, 57 for Reynor, both 127 supply. Reynor's trying to buy time, trying to do good with the lings that he has out on the map. Does trade 3 lings for that bailing, which absolutely isn't bad, and does kind of deny a 4th location popping down. Ooh, Serral's moving into Tunneling Claw Roaches here with Burrow, before throwing down a 4th base.
Yeah, this is that's one of my favorite things to see, though, right? In ZVZ, bringing the burrowed roaches, hitting all the different bases at once. You have to be so careful. I mean, detection becomes at a premium in the mid-late stage of this matchup, at least between these two guys, because lurkers almost always rear their ugly heads at some point. But since we're going to be sticking big on roaches, having as many upgrade leads as you can is huge, even if it's just to regenerate the hit points on those roaches a little bit faster, right? Rather than just sending them across. As Reynor's going to approach that 3rd once again. Now that spine is repositioned over by the mineral line area. Great pre-concave. Reynor's going to try to run something into the main base, though. During this, catching a bit of an opportunity. He's going to get a queen, it looks like, and a few of the drones in the main base. This is a really nice backstab while Reynor brings that frontal pressure. This is exactly the trademark type of plays that both of these players are known for, except it's Reynor that's capitalizing on it this game.
Yeah, and Reynor's just handling the fight so well as well. I mean, those lings, should they be getting this kind of damage done? Should they be making Serral's life so hard? No, they shouldn't, but they're Reynor lings. He's still not mining at his natural with those drones. So this was a lot of lost mining time for the Finn, as well as losing quite a few drones. He's now 53 drones versus the, 60 of Reynor. Tunneling Claws. Wait, he restarted Tunneling Claws? Did he cancel it to that attack? Did he think it was more than it was?
I guess he thought he needed the money more than he needed the upgrade. That's one of those things in ZVZ because of that larva mechanic. You're like, all right, I got to crank out everything I can, or maybe I need a few of the Ravagers. The gas becomes a concern that you don't want to lose the game because you just skipped a bit of your production for it. But that definitely takes away a pretty valuable tool that he was going to have. I'm with you there, Benjamin. I was quite surprised to see that was what was shut down. Still has that +2 attack, way ahead of Reynor, though. In any straight-up head-to-head fight, he should have a nice advantage from that if he was able to force that engagement before +2 finishes for his opponent.
Reynor's doing a really good job of buying time, though, because he's the one that's had a bit of a better economy. He's also got a 4th base running as well. Serral's only just started his 4th base, which just shows you he's on a bit of a clock here within regards to Reynor just kind of soaking things up a little bit faster, getting more of a bank quicker and better. And Reynor starts his own tunneling claws here as well.
Oh, here we go. Big roach plays. Big roach plays. Biles getting thrown all over the place. You got to be careful about having those Ravagers towards the front, though. They are quite squishy compared to those roaches. And we do have an attack on that east side expansion, but more of the roaches come back for Reynor. And there's the burrow play. So there it is. Finally getting to be able to use that in a meaningful way. This is going to just force all that supply to sit there because it's a lot more supply at that base for Reynor than Serral. And that makes his actual army in a head-to-head fight a little bit bigger. I mean, hey, if he gets to kill this Roach Warren, that could be game-ending too.
It certainly could. It certainly could. Oh, roaches from Serral everywhere in the main base, in the 4th base. He's also seemingly winning the main fight. And the Roach Warren goes down before the Tunneling Claws does finish for those roaches. And Serral is eking out quite an advantage here, despite the economic deficit. When it comes to these Roach Ravager battles, Serral has been microing better, but Reynor getting a huge wraparound with the amount of roaches that he has. But it's supply.
Where'd they come from? Where did the rest of those roaches come from? I mean, Serral still has so much that he's killed 20 drones in a backstab while his army was being chased. I was looking at this big concave Reynor pulls off. On my mind, I'm like, oh my God, this looks crazy. But at the same time, Serral with a absolutely devastating economic blow, he baited him. He followed the army all the way across the center of the field while his backup roaches killed 22 drones. And well, we've got one that's still over here puking away on some workers.
He had roaches in literally every base of Reynor there. Reynor didn't know what hit him. Serral looking demanding in this 4th game. Does take a few piles there, but it's almost like a power play at this point. Marching in with roaches here, there, and everywhere again. Reynor just can't keep up, and he's probably going to lose the main fight as well. Serral just marching through the fire and the flames of the corrosive biles here. drones evacuating halfway through the fight as well. I think he's doing it. I think he's going to tie up the series.
Yeah, the potential is 100% there. Things are looking fantastic for Serral. And also worth noting, he got +2 Carapace. That's finishing up right now. So he is still, throughout pretty much this whole entire game, well ahead in the upgrade department of this Roach v Roach. And I do think that well ahead is a way to describe even just one upgrade when you're using the same units as your opponent. Even biles down his own Roaches as we were saying, you know, even gods kill their own units sometimes. And now coming back up that ramp with a massive, massive army supply difference, almost 50 supply ahead is Serral. Now, if he were to walk into a bunch of corrosive vials perfectly spread all over his army, maybe he could still throw this one away. He's going to try to avoid that happening and just keep pressing forward with this massive supply advantage as he throws those vials in front of him, and more Roaches somehow get back behind, killing those drones. GG, Serral ties the series.
We are blessed, Nate. We're absolutely blessed. This has gone all the way and yet again between these guys. They're both so evenly matched in very different ways. And guys, we're going to have a short break here. We need it.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Whew. Just, damn, Ben, this match, it always delivers.
I mean, what is there left to say about it? Like, they're both so good. They're both so evenly matched. And yeah, it's just an absolute joy. Because I never thought we'd get to the point in time where not only is the best Zerg a foreigner, like a non-Korean, but potentially like the best two Zergs or two foreigners kind of thing. And yeah, I like Serral and Reynor, they really are masterclass. I know there's other really good Zergs out there like Darks and Rogues of the world, but these two, they are just amazing. And the fact that we get to see them nearly every DreamHack now just duke it out and really go toe-to-toe against one another. Beautiful stuff. Anyhow, spawning over in the bottom right-hand side for the last time this evening, it is going to be Clash as Reynor.
And his opponent, who just tied things up and brought us to this game 5. In the top left, the blue Zerg player, he is Serral.
Now, what cheeky shenanigans are going to come out this game? So a pool first for Serral against a hatch first for Reynor. Now, you might be like, oh my god, it's already over for Reynor, or rather, already over for Serral. It doesn't quite work like that anymore. It is definitely a little bit of an edge here, given that the pool first, not the 12 pool, the like kind of safe pool, is better against the pool, or rather the 12 pool openings, which, you know, Reynor, he's been known to be cheeky. And you know, what better time to be cheeky than the 5th game of the series? And Serral was kind of like, yeah, I would hate myself if I, you know, let that happen to me. So just going a little bit safe here. But also one thing to note is Serral was in a lot of trouble that last game until he really got going with the roaches and the burrowed and the tunneling claws kind of thing. I was really, really impressed with how he just took control of that series, grabbed it by the horns, and just made it his own.
Yeah, this has just been a hell of a match. We're watching two of the best go at it, doing their best, and it is really just a joy. It's really a treat to watch, and that's why I always like to try and preface when we go into these ones. I'm like, hey, if you've got reservations about ZVZ, trust me, this isn't your dad's ZVZ, all right? This is some new age stuff. This is some funky, fresh, progressive ZVZ that we get to see here, and it is beautiful. The Muslim. It is just awesome. And playing on Light Shade, I think for most types of army comps or ways that you would play, you can do a lot with this. There's a couple of different ways to try and poke and prod, some secondary openings for the third bases. You have a wide open lower base next to that natural expansion as well that can become a really big target later on, but also some airspace if we end up having the potential for Nidus or Mutus shenanigans and whatnot.
So Reynor's going for the forward third here. I always like it when you have the choice on a map like this, where it's like, okay, do I go for the more triangular base, or do I go for the one, vertical with my others? Serral's going to go for a very early Baneling nest here, not at the front, by the way, so this is very difficult to scout for Reynor. And maybe that signifies the fact that it is not being used as part of a wall, but it's actually being hidden, that Serral actually wants to be aggressive this game.
Yeah, and I don't mind it. I like seeing the aggression. I want to see it. I want to see these players keep bashing heads, because that's where things get exciting, And that's probably another staple way to describe both of them, even outside of mirror matchup. If we just take a step back, the way that they play versus everybody else is not even necessarily a traditional, oh, this guy's really aggro, he just likes to all in a bunch, or he's cheesy. They'll do the most standard macro openers and builds, and they'll just build a few more lings than the other players will. And then when you're not looking, when you hesitate for a second, when you're going to move a Marine to try and kill an overload on the edge of your base, boom, 12 lings are in your natural, right? You're halfway across the map, you're getting ready to fight, you see a giant Zerg army, boom, your third base is hit by Banelings. Whether you're a Protoss, Terran, doesn't matter. These guys are experts at finding ways to deal damage without having to commit their builds to being aggressive. They just make these opportunities happen all on their own.
Yeah, and also one of the beautiful things is these guys can make things happen that the other players can't. Not only are they kind of like playing their own name kind of thing, because everybody's a little bit afraid of them and the things that they can do, but genuinely the things that they can do with their units, they micro second to none. Here, we're very, very mirrored in our approaches. The +1 range for both of them is very, very similar. Serral does start his lair earlier than Reynor thus far, and Reynor's Roach Warren is on the way. I do believe Serral's is completed. But any sort of lead that Reynor had from the initial build, being like hatch first against pool first, it's kind of gone at this point. It's very, very even between them, and maybe with Serral with a slight edge.
Yeah, well, I'm interested to see which way the tech ends up going. Serral's going to get that Overlord speed relatively early here too, which is always another point of contention, actually, because I think Serral's one of those, he's one of the only Zergs that will almost always get it early in the other matchups. And you see like tons of debate and people are like, well, yeah, just because he does it doesn't mean that I need to. And yet he always seems to have the right thing in the right place, of course, except for when he's against Reynor, because things just get a little bit too crazy sometimes. And as that layer does finish up, we see the Roach speed. Things that we expect lots of Overlords are finishing up too, so going to free up that supply to potentially crank out a lot more. And, well, we have 7 more Roaches in production right now, Benjamin.
Look at
this Ling split. What is that? No!
Oh,
my! He got it!
That was...
Who does that?
That was crazy.
Who can macro, micro, do their economy, their creep, injects, whatever, and split 8 Lings individually outside the perfect range of a Baneling blast? So that it's like, oh yeah, I've got 3 Banelings. I can stop 10 Lings from killing my 3rd or my 4th. Can you though? Can you though?
And also, I love the fact that Reynor thought he did enough to save it, but like didn't, obviously. But now he has to do something a little bit crazy, because make no mistake, Serral got himself a little bit of a lead with that happening, and Reynor's doing a lot of the right stuff. He's doing the Ling split now, and he's only going to have 2 Lings remaining. Oh, beautiful queen positioning by Serral. Serral needs to unsupply block himself pretty soon. Nice cancel by him on this hatchery. So Reynor's definitely throwing a bit of chaos at the side of Serral, and Serral has to realize that something weird is going down, because who makes this many Lings? Who tries to buy this much time? And for what? We do see Aspire is very close to finishing on the side of the Italian.
Yeah, this is getting wild. This is getting crazy now as the Roach counts are starting to greatly increase for both of them. And now with Reynor's Roach speed finishing, he can actually step out on the map. That's one of the hardest parts. If your opponent gets that upgrade before you, you have no ability to retreat with slow Roaches against speed. And it's just one of those things that, versus when it comes to the micro, because the Roach has such low range, that positioning is even more important than normal, since any Roaches behind, 2 or 3 will not be able to shoot at the enemies. So you really need to make sure that you're on top of the positioning on that. Goes for the Contaminate. That's going to delay that +2 ranged attack for Reynor. However, that's not the only thing that Reynor's banking on right now, DeMuslim. He's got 11 Mutalisks about to pop.
Yeah, and that's enough to actually deal a lot of damage. Like these Ravages and stuff, focus those down easily, and I think Serral might get blindsided by this quite a chunk. Okay, he sees the mutas now, and Serral's face on that webcam, I saw his eyes light up there, and that is a lot of mutas already out for Reynor, which is definitely scary. Serral, for the time being, was thinking, okay, it's going to be a Roach battle, I'm going to get ahead in upgrades, I'm going to delay his upgrade and such, which is all well and good, but how are you going to deal with these mutas?
Yeah, that's going to be the really big question as they're going to come up onto this northeast base. It's so far away from everything else that Serral has. Without a finished Spore, it's a very easy pickings for these Mutalisks. And the other nice thing with that bounce, too, is they clear out the larva, so he doesn't really have any opportunity to capitalize off of this hatchery. And that is certainly going to be annoying, as the +2 attack for his Roaches and Ravagers will also finish. Serral's trying to burrow some Roaches back way across, though. Reynor, however, at the same time gets Lings inside of the main base, doing it to each other with those Zerglings. A couple of drones here, a couple of drones there can add up to make a big difference, especially when your whole frickin' army has to run back into your main to kill 2 burrowed Roaches.
Tunneling Claws is active though for Serral, which is a big deal. Also, he's taken up to Hive. He's getting Infestors out as well. So this isn't his end game. It isn't just like, oh, I'm going to throw units at you and just hopefully buy time, or like, kill your economy kind of game. He's actually going for the later game. Fungals on the mutas could be amazing. Reynor's doing a really good job of denying the 4th over and over again. And Serral's just, he's going to have to try and find magic with this. He really is. Because Reynor's doing a really good job of seemingly shutting everything down while being aggressive.
Yeah, and the other side benefit to this, when you're able to bring this level of aggression to your opponent, is you don't have to think about scouting anymore. You see everything. You see the infestation pit. Obviously, you see that there's a hive, so that tells you the former information anyway. But getting a kill here, even on the spawning pool, if you've been able to pick queens off, you're gonna delay their production capabilities. It's not just about zerglings anymore. You need the queens for anti-air. You need to be able to build everything, right? Your spore crawlers and possibly spines if you feel like you can't win on the ground either, and you need a little bit more ground defense. And those mutas are going to shut this expansion down again.
Maybe Serral has to start thinking about the other expansion. The thing is, his creep is just so much closer to this base, and he's been slowly trying to move a spore crawler over to it, but oh my goodness, it's cancelled. Or rather, it's not even cancelled, it's killed by Reynor. They're both still skating around the 200 supply mark. Reynor's getting his own tunneling claws and such now, but he's also securing himself, well, he's already got his 4th base, but more importantly, he's going up to Hydralisk tech as well, of all things.
Yeah. Oh, man. Okay, so Burrow just finished for Reynor, so he can start to get into some of those shenanigans now as that tunneling claws will also finish for them. And can't really... Yeah. I was going to say, Hives have, what, 3,000 hit points? 7 mutas will take... Even Mutalisk with some upgrades are going to take a long time to beat down a Hive.
Yeah.
The donkiest structure in StarCraft.
I'm super scared for Serral at this point, because this bank of Reynor, given the fact that he's just been the one dealing lots of damage with the mutas and stuff, like he's at almost 5k minerals, 2k gas here. But Serral, I say that, and Serral is managing to find some drones here, there, and everywhere. So 7 drones do fall down for Reynor. But the thing is, I feel that that's almost like a blessing in disguise, because does he need to drone up again?
He needs more army supply to win when he's behind on bank, right? He needs to win decisively when his opponent has this much of a resource lead on him. And I shudder to think how you find that opportunity. You're stuck on 3 bases. Reynor's had his 4th forever. Yeah. No, well, you already said it, Ben, and that's the big problem. Is there's a massive economic discrepancy that you can really only make up for if you're going to go like full Terran as far as cost effectiveness goes, right? You're going to need to kill a whole Zerg army without losing pretty much any of your own, and that is never an easy thing to do, especially when you're playing against somebody like Reynor. And there you go, he's trying to fight on the south side now, gets a couple of fungals, drops the bios down on top of those units too. The Hydralisk DPS is very nice, but we start to see that bank turn. The supply did not go down for Reynor, despite a lot of units dying, because he is just an extremely rich boy. These roaches unburrow over the rest of those roaches. Serral's gonna burrow to try and retreat, but Reynor's like, yes, if your roaches burrow and they're underground, I can kill the drones here. So you're going to have to change the way that this is going. And he actually went for the spore crawler so that the mutas could have just a little bit more of that freedom.
I like the choice to go for the spore there. These queens, though, having like 2 upgraded queens, soon to be 3-2, they'll deal with those mutas no problem, even if the mutas kind of outnumber them. The problem is, Reynor, he's out on the map again. Like, he produced 30 roaches all at once, and every second that goes by, he's just mining kind of more than his opponent right now. Big fungals do land, though. This could be kind of nice by Serral, but there's so much Reynor coming in from every angle now. And the bios, they are landing on Serral. He's got almost nowhere to run.
Now, the hardest part about this type of army is when you're using the Hydralisks, they have that great damage output, but they are glass cannons, so to speak. If the roaches or the ravagers are able to attack them pretty much at all, they die extremely quickly. So that's one of the ways that Serral's trying to claw this one back. He's trying to use these cost-effective units. He does have lurker range coming in soon. He's got 4 lurkers on the way. And if there was ever a comeback unit in ZVZ, the lurker is definitely one of them. However, Reynor is already building Vipers, the Muslim, the absolute best unit that you could use to neutralize them.
If I'm honest though, this situation, like compared to a minute ago when it was like a 5k, 2k bank for Reynor, like it being this now, he's only got 1.5k, 1k bank, and Serral's slightly ahead in supply. I'm liking this a little bit better than it was for Serral, which that means Serral's kind of eking out little advantages here and there. And I look at the resources lost tab as well. Serral has lost less than Reynor this game. He's also maxed out. Reynor isn't. I'm so amazed by the fact that Serral is still in this. He has to respect this run by Reynor though with the roaches here.
Yeah, he's got a nice surround on this roach force from Serral as it tries to make its way out of that northeast base. Serral getting a little bit, or excuse me, receiving a little bit of that same roach backstab damage and killing a Hydralisk as it comes out is really big. Oh my God, neutralizing the lurker then before he gets seismic spines. That is an absolutely massive pick off for Serral. Reynor leaving probably the most valuable tech structure he has in the game up front is something that he may come to regret if he cannot get. Well, he's going to be needing a decisive victory now soon because he just got set back to the Stone Age. Meanwhile, Serral, well, he's got a wonder halfway done if he gets enough lurkers to fight this ground army.
Oh, Serral picks off another base here with his roaches getting behind enemy lines, and Reynor's kind of forgot about his own roaches in the main base of his opponent. Lurker count is up to 4 for Serral now, and they do have better upgrades, but this army of Reynor, it can't be underestimated. Oh my goodness, aggressive lurkers.
And you know what? He's in range of the spore too to give the vision even without the overseer there, but 7 drones, some of the roaches down. I hesitate to smile at still seeing 4 lurkers die there though for him. That's definitely not ideal. The Vipers are over here with the blinding clouds to create a little bit more opportunity for Reynor's attacking force in this northwest space, and I do not see enough here for Serral to clean this up.
No, I think Reynor's breaking through. He's got 40 supply advantage in Serral. He does